Strike Back, episode 5, season 3. After last week's episode with Rachel dying, we of course have a new leader to Section 20, and that's Philip Locke. He obviously was introduced in episode 1. He was kind of this mysterious sort of guy. He's obviously very well known whenever someone mentions, his name. It's like, he did this or he did that. So he's a really well known guy, and with Rachel having been killed in the last episode, sadly, he is now officially the leader of Section 20, which is kind of unfortunate because I was hoping that the new characters that were brought in weren't going to just be replacing old characters, which is kind of how things ended up going, especially, with Rachel being killed. And now, once again, we have a new leader, Section 20 for this season. And it's driving me nuts. I'm really hoping they don't do that again because it's just like, especially with how they did it this season, where she survived last season after it seemed like she died, and then she's killed off this season after, or in the fourth episode. So it kind of sucks that happened because, it seemed like, oh, now we have hope. She survived in the season 2, and it seemed like she'd, go in and kind of be under Locke, but unfortunately she was killed. So now Locke is in full control. And in this episode, we got to see Locke, mostly in the end, we got to really see him, pull off some of his own little action sequences. And it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not he survives next episode, which I'm really hoping he does, and I'm kind of assuming he will. But with how the show goes, you never really know. But this episode, I think the biggest things to me were, of course, Stonebridge not being able to, shoot pretty much anything when it really matters. And the fact that they mentioned leaving, Scott and Stonebridge both mentioned leaving, I believe twice in this episode. And normally it seems like, it's Stonebridge that mentions how he kind of wants to get out. And normally Scott seems like he doesn't really, want to leave. And, even in this episode when Stonebridge first mentions, like, let's get the diamonds, let's see how much they're worth, just in case. Scott seemed like he wasn't really sure. And then when they had the scene after the explosion, Scott's like, it's way too close. We have to get out of this as soon as possible. And it really seemed interesting to me because normally, like I said, Scott seemed like he was really against it. Like he'd kind of go along with it because Stonebridge is his friend and he didn't want to kind of argue with, what he wanted for his own life. But in this episode, he really seemed to feel that way himself. And I think it's more so due to the fact that Rachel was killed off. Because, when they're y'all drinking, the characters all drinking together, he mentions how many times she almost got them killed and how, he says himself, I'd be a liar if I said I wasn't happy that she's not here. And, I think it just kind of, it kind of got to him knowing how, they're just losing people left and right now. And this season, it started off, of course, with the loss. And then, like I said, last episode, they killed off Rachel. In this episode, of course, it's the aftermath of that. They show her funeral. It's revealed to everyone that she has a son. And, of course, we, as viewers, find that out in the last episode. And so, everyone finds that out because of the funeral. And, it's just interesting to see how that dynamic kind of affects everyone, particularly, Scott and Stonebridge, because they have these diamonds. And it really is their way out, because I would imagine that at some point, when they actually do get them looked at, they'll be worth a ton of money. So it's kind of their way out, but at the same time, they're still going through the motions because they have to stop someone who's a really bad person. And in this episode, we have McKenna, who is the killer of Rachel. She's in this episode. She's kind of the main villain focus of this episode. And, we get a little twist, I guess, towards the center of the episode, or I guess it's actually towards the end, where it's revealed that she's not actually McKenna, she's McKenna's younger sister, and that's why she hasn't already been killed off by other people. So it's going to be interesting to see who McKenna really is and what her, actual role is if she has to take so many steps to actually have her sister, like take her place out on the field type of thing. The end of the episode I really enjoyed. It was just a cool little scene, which they gave a preview for last week, and they talked about, the behind the scenes stuff. And it was a cool scene. It was shorter than I thought. I thought it was going to be like the last half hour of the episode or something. and they were gonna have this whole big thing and go through it. But it was fairly quick. McKenna's sister, whoever she may really be, she has all these people set up, in the airport, and she goes through and she has a gun, hidden in the bathroom, which is kind of convenient. I mean, I just thought in my head they must have put it in all the bathrooms because that's the only way you'd really know. But I'm assuming that's what they did. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But she goes in the bathroom. She gets free. Has a gun. I'm really glad that neither of the girls died because I was like, if they kill off like one more person, it's gonna drive me nuts. Fortunately, they're both shot, but both okay. And Scott and Stonebridge, shooting up other people, and Locke is actually captured by McKenna's sister. I'm just gonna call her McKenna because I don't know her name yet, but he's captured by McKenna, and once again, like earlier in the episode when Stonebridge had the rocket launcher and he couldn't hit the trucks, he can't take the shot because his focus is so messed up. And I wish I could talk about the middle portion when he actually goes to the doctor, but for some stupid reason my cable decided to lose signal, so like that nice little chunk just like it's gone, so I can't exactly talk about it. It was like right when she was drawing his blood, it like cut out, and then it skipped like right to the part when they were like going up the stairs to like get the Irishman or whoever they were getting, because I don't actually know. But whatever he's going through, it's obviously still affecting him. I'm not sure. Like I said, I didn't see the scene, so I'm not sure what the doctor said to him. But I can assume based on the show, if she gave him like the real news, or if she did find out what it was, it's not good, and he's gonna continue to hide it from everyone in the show until it's just so bad that he like maybe like falls over and like he just passes out or something crazy like that happens, and hopefully that doesn't result in someone else dying, which it could in next week's episode, which is this really big attack that they were trying to find out where and when it was, which they almost had right before McKenna was freed because they're in the wrong country, which really does suck that they were that close to like stopping a terrorist attack, and then like the most minute law comes into place, and it's like you gotta let her go. But next week's episode, from the preview, there are mortars shooting off and like flying into buildings, and of course they have to save Locke because he's been captured at the end of this episode. So I'm really excited to see just how things play out in next week's episode. Will they actually show who McKenna really is? Will we get more information on Al-Zuhari, which we got this episode. They had the video of him in the beginning, and it's actually him. You see his face. And next week's episode, Kamali will come in, and he's more a part of the team now because Locke was like, I need you to come in, and Kamali was like, well, my daughter, and he's like, I need you to come in, and he just was like, okay, I'll make arrangements. So he'll be back in next week's episode, and considering their connection with when things started off, well, not, I guess not their connection, but just considering their status, Philip Locke being like this really important character, even though we don't know too much about him, and Kumali being this like super deep cover agent, even though he's sort of busted now, I guess. It kind of depends where things go with McKenna and her sister. But with their statuses being so high as good and bad, or I guess sort of neutral in Kamali's case, it'll be interesting to see how much he really cares for Locke, considering how little he cared for Rachel. So I'm curious to see where that goes. And obviously, comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. How do you think next week's episode is going to go if you saw the preview? And I guess the most important thing is what is going to happen to Stonebridge. Is he going to figure this out? Is he going to have more problems? How do you think it's going to play out for the rest of the season? And also, before I forget, Strike Back Origins, that was pretty cool to see. A 6-part prequel showing, I can't remember his name, but it was actually Scott's friend that they mentioned like in the first episode, which is like kind of how they got Scott to come in because they were like good friends. So I'm definitely excited for that to come out, and that's October 21st or 25th, I believe, and that premieres at 10 p.m. on Friday night. So definitely check that out. Andrew Lincoln is in it. If you like Walking Dead, it's the main guy from Walking Dead. So definitely check that out when it comes out. And like I said, comment below. Let me know everything for this episode, rest of the season, all your thoughts, comments, and concerns. And thanks for watching.